Morning, everyone. How are you today?
Good.
Great. First of all, thank you so much for coming to this session, our session. My name is Syed Bashir. I'm one of the vice president at Royal Cyber. Right? Royal Cyber, we are partners of IBM, Broadcom, Rocket Software, and partners of Microsoft, Amazon, Google. We are like IT solution providers and consulting. Like, I mean, we are around like 2,000 plus resources worldwide, based out in Chicago. And today we are going to talk about Zowe modernization, how mainframe integrates with Zowe, and how Zowe helps in from the modernization perspective. That's the main topic, and let's go through this. Let's make it like a more interactive, or if you have questions, we can answer it later too. Plus, we have other sessions we are doing, and we are here. You can catch up me, Brijesh, and Veera, right? So we talked about Royal Cyber. So this is an agenda. Main thing about our company. I will take a minute to go through overview about who we are and what we do, and then we can get into the main meat of the session, which is Zowe, right? And end of the session, we can do the Q&A. You have been in the industry for more than 20 plus years. As I said, like partners of IBM. Those days, we started with the mainframe modernization with RDZ, today it's IDZ, RAA, RTZZ. How many people know all these tools which I'm talking about? RTZ, IDZ, the mainframe modernization tools. That's how we started those days, helping customers from the development modernization as well as application modernization. Those days, we have those tools, but not with IBM. I think HCL took over, like HATS, HOD, PCOM, and all this stuff. Do you guys know HATS, HOD, and PCOM, all those emulators? Okay. So that's how we started. That's a little history, and eventually we partnered with Amazon, Google, Microsoft on the complete digital transformations. So we are around 2,000 plus employees globally, based out in Chicago. We have a global presence in Canada, London, UK, Sydney, Australia, a big presence in India, and we have like Fortune 500 customers, a mainframe perspective, helping them on modernization, both from the application modernization and development modernization. Right? So that's a very high level, as I said, like partners of Amazon, Microsoft, IBM, Broadcom, Google, etc. And working with customers for the past 20 plus years, we have grown a lot of assets and solutions, and we have listed here a few of them. Why I'm talking about this is like we are solution and products based company. We build a lot of solutions, especially when it comes to legacy SCM migration. So, right, I mean, we have a framework and a solution to migrate any legacy SCM to a modern Git and GitLab and GitHub, so that, I mean, it helps you in terms of DevOps, or I mean the cloud journey and containerization, all the stuff. Plus we have other solutions like ZDevOps, like in terms of CI, CD, and CT becomes much easier from the continuous integration and all the stuff, right? And Micro Focus COBOL, a lot of customers, they have Micro Focus, they want to move it to other COBOL, so we have a framework to migrate. And Endeavor and any change manager SCM to any modern like GitHub, GitLab, RTC, and all the stuff. So we have frameworks to migrate all this legacy SCM to the modern ones, right? And also Urban Code has become popular from the IBM perspective when it comes to DevOps with the UCD and U-Release. So how to integrate that with Endeavor or Changeman and do the continuous deployments and help them from the continuous integration perspective. So these are some of the assets and solutions which we have developed, and majority of these solutions we give it as a complimentary service to our customers with whom we are working today. Right? So let's start the main session, right? So what are the challenges you guys face today when it comes to mainframe today, right? Before modernization, right? I mean, like, can you just say one by one the main challenges you face? Modernization. That's a big challenge. Why modernization, right? That's a question which I'm asking. Like, what is the challenge which makes you to think about modernization? Skills, amazing. That's the biggest challenge which I see across all the customers. Skills gap is when you say skills, at least to bring in the younger developers to get into this mainframe development is becoming a biggest challenge. That's what I'm hearing across the board, like all the customers, they're saying, hey, like how to bring in young people are retiring and it's getting a big gap in terms of skills, how to bring them. So everybody are going to the flashy cloud and AI and ML and all this stuff. How to bring young kids into mainframe development is the biggest gap which we have today. Other challenges?
Adversity to change from like prior, like people who've been there 30 years, they don't really want to change what they're doing on the day-to-day.
Change is a big thing. Great one. Any other? Sorry? Money. Cost is an issue. How to save cost, how to bring in return of investment. All the C-level executives are thinking, mainframe is great. Everybody loves it. Still, how to bring in return of investment by saving and improving productivity and all this stuff. Amazing. Security, great one. Yeah, all these are great challenges. Let's move on and talk about how to solve these challenges from the monetization perspective, right? Which is Zowe is one of the biggest, it's a great product today. It is open source, open project, which is available today, and it's been supported by IBM, Broadcom, and Rocket Software. So we're going to talk more from the Zowe perspective today. Right? Sorry. Yeah, these are the challenges. Talent gap and DevOps integration is becoming complex today with the legacy mainframe world. So bringing CI, CD, and CT. How many of you are doing DevOps today on mainframes? Like continuous integration, testing, and continuous. Awesome. So that becomes easier when you get into Zowe sort of a solution, because we will show you how that becomes easier. Cost is an issue. Inadequate code analysis, right? It becomes easy when you have a modern IDE like Zowe to do the code analysis, because in the legacy mainframe, we can do that, but it's a little complex. But with Zowe sort of a tool, we can do code analysis more easily. Right? Cost, lack of modern development IDE, knowledge. These are the challenges which we talked about. Yeah, this is a solution which is going to solve today, and all these challenges which you saw. So let's talk about Zowe, right? Do you want to start?
Yeah, okay. I'll use the...
Yeah, I have Veera. He is coming from the Zowe background. He has 20 years of experience in mainframe. So go ahead, Veera. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Virendra, and I work for Royal Cyber since last 5 years. I've been on mainframe since 17 years, and 20 years of work experience. Today we're going to talk about Zowe. So Zowe is an open source founded by companies like IBM, Rocket Software, and Zowe, and Broadcom. So in the year 2018, that's when it all came into picture, when they all came together, and we had different releases since then. Right now, I guess we have in the previous session, I guess. They spoke about the 2.1 release and the configuration, and so now I guess 2023 they're focusing morely on the security and training. So what are the how do we access Zowe, or how does Zowe interact with the mainframe? So some of the components we're going to talk about today, not everything, but some of these components. One being the application framework, using which we can access the APIs through this the component of the Zowe, and the CLI, the command line interface, which is the for a Unix developer or a Java developer who uses the command line type of interface. This component would be most useful, and this is how they could more relate to the mainframe, even though they're working on a CLI based, but at the end, at the back end, it is mainframe. And the Explorer is another component we're going to talk about in a little more detail. And the desktop is the UI based, browser based component of Zowe. And you don't need to have any plugins or anything installed on your laptop or desktop. You could use a browser to connect to using the Zowe to the mainframe. And so and last but not least, it's the API mediation layer. We're going to talk about this one as well in a little more detail. So the application framework, this component, so we can categorize this one into two parts. One is the client-based, which being the user's laptop, desktop, or a phone, and the other part, the second part, is the server, where we have the majority of the server part installation is done on the mainframe, some part on the distributed as well. So on the client side, we did speak about the CLI and the Explorer, and how does this all integrate into the mainframe is what we're going to look into some of the next slides. And the mediation layer, using the mediation layer, how can you build your own API using the Zowe this framework, and then you can integrate that into the mainframe. So that's we're going to look.
So the API is the key, right? I mean, like, that is more from the modernization perspective. When you say API, how to connect the outside world to the mainframe world, right? For example, if you have Kix transactions, right? I mean, like, or any business logic sitting in the mainframe, how to create a wrapper on top of it, right? I mean, like, it's a little complex or difficult, or I don't know if it's possible or not possible, but when it comes to Zowe, you can identify those transactions. You can create a API layer. Now, I mean, like, you can interact with the outside world. For example, if you have a Google API or Yahoo, whether whatever it is, if you want to give us an input to this API which talks to the Kix transactions, those API creation and consuming those APIs becomes much easier when it comes to Zowe, right? So that is one of the main modernization feature, I will say, like, which Zowe solves today. Building APIs, consuming APIs, managing APIs, right?
Thank you. So before we talk about the next few slides, so how does a traditional mainframe looks like, right? So most of us, we know the screen, we access mainframe using an emulator, being HOD or IBM, right? So this is how we traditionally it's accessed, and this is, I mean, most of the newer generation developers might not be interested with this type of interfaces. That's why we have Zowe, right? So some of these options, for example, to create a data set, you would have to know. You obviously you will get used to it when you start doing it, but you got to know the options. You got to go. You got to know these the volume where you have to put the data sets into, and the tracks and things like that, right? And so this is how you would actually create a data set. So in the top it does say a data set is allocated, right? So however, using a CLI, so CLI in this as we see, a Unix-based person or Unix-based type of developer who would like to create a data set or FTP, a file to and off the mainframe using commands, right? That's what they are more familiar with. So this interface, the CLI, it does help the user, be the system programmer or the developer, issue the commands. So these are the commands to create a data set. So we're going to talk about this group as well. We're going to quickly show a demo as to how CLI can be used. So this is imagine if this is our laptop or desktop on the system, and we have a CLI install. And so how do we interact with the mainframe here, right? So Zowe, and then this is the first a very useful command, help, which does list all the help that's available for a CLI interface. So in here it does talk about the Zowe files or ZOS files, or you can instead of giving ZOS files, you could just give files as well. Similarly, for the FTP, you can give ZFTP or ZOS FTP. So it's always prefixed with Zowe to start with, and then this command to manage the data sets. And similarly for FTPing a file to and off the mainframe, you could use this ZFTP. And the jobs, managing the job outputs. For example, you submit a job and you want to see the output, you could you could use this feature here. And similarly, the logs. You can also look at the system logs right here on the CLI. You don't have to know how to go into the mainframe and then go to, for example, if you have to access a syslog out of a mainframe, you have to go to SDSF and then you go to the log and then that's how you access. But a Unix-based person, he doesn't have no need to know all that interfaces. But all he could do is use these commands and then be able to see the logs out there. So we also have the SSH, which is the Unix file systems. So we could use Unix file system. For example, your application code is on the Unix file system. You could use this the SSH here, or ZOS-SSH, or just USS, and then be able to list a directory or a file, edit code or update a configuration file. So all that can be done right here on the CLI. And of course, the TSO, the interface on the that we use on the traditional mainframe, we could use those commands out here as well.
So how many of you are using Zowe today? Like, you guys all are new, or you started using it? Okay. So you use CLI Explorer and all those components, or?
I've got exposed to it. I don't use it every single day, but we have it in our shop, and occasionally I'll go poke to see what's changed when it comes out. But I haven't really implemented it. I mean, I've used some of the APIs and stuff with CLI, but I haven't actually implemented it in my day-to-day.
Okay.
As of yet.
You started using it,
I
at least.
started using it.
So CLI is to have CLI working on your system, on the client system, on the client-based system. You need to have the Node.js installed on your system, and then on the other side of it, it does connect to the ZOSMF that's installed on the ZOS side of it, or the mainframe side of it. And so as we saw on the demo, so this is how so some of the groups that are available for us to be able to talk to the mainframe, and so on the next few slides, I guess it's the help command that we saw on the demo there, and in this example we are creating a data set called rcyber. And in the next command here, we are able to list the data set here. And we can also list the host it's connected to the CLI. Using this command, it will tell us what is the host this CLI is connected to. And for example, here it says the ZOSMF server, the host name is this one, and and the port it's connecting to, and this is the web address here. And the next component is the Zowe Explorer that we're going to talk about. So the Explorer, this is one more on the client side. We can install the VS Studio or the VS Codium on the client side system. And then this should also be able to you should also be able to configure to connect to the ZOSMF on the mainframe. And so some of the features that's available with the Explorers are the file management and the job management. Once again, to look at your job output and or submitted job. And so we can look at quickly look at the demo for the Explorer as well. So we have the VS Codium installed here, and so this is the Explorer. This is how an Explorer interface would look like. And For some reason, it's not connecting, but yeah. So maybe I can go back to the slide.
It's like activating enterprise with the
Yeah. So it's gonna.
enterprise management extensions, activating extensions.
Yeah. So it's taking some time. So yeah, so in using this the Explorer, we could access the data sets right here and the Unix services and the jobs. So it's a very interactive type of component where you would be able to, for example, you click on a data set on the left hand side of the screen here, you would be able to see the member. For example, if it's a PDS, you click on the PDS, and then the members are all listed here down here, and then you can and go to each of those members and then be able to see the members here. And if, for example, if it's a code that's written in the COBOL, and if it's a developer who is working on this Explorer, they can go to each of these member and then update their codes as in.
Is it functional now? It says it's done. It's not.
Oh,
I didn't know if maybe it was ready or not. Sorry.
No problem. Thanks. Yeah.
Yes. No.
It's not connected?
Yeah, no, it's not coming up. So I think I'll go back to the slide. So yeah, the interface would look like this, and yeah, they would have files, which would be the data sets would be somewhere here on the top, and the job management and the Unix services. If you, for example, you don't work on the Unix, you can just go to these three dots here, and then uncheck the Unix services and just use the data sets and the job. Maybe if you don't submit jobs, you're just working on the codes, you don't need to see that, so you can uncheck that as well. Just list the data sets, or for vice versa, if you want to work only on the Unix services and not on the others, just have Unix services, and then it will display the directories and the paths on this side of the screen, and we could continue working on the be it developer or a system programmer. If it's a system programmer, your job is to install products, configure, maintenance. So you could do all that right here. So we could maybe in the future, maybe the current generation system programmers like to do the traditional. Maybe in the future, the people might adopt the Explorer or the web, the desktop, which is the next one we're going to talk about as well. So, Zowe Explorer provides a set of commands that interacts with the mainframe resources like the Zowe SMF that we spoke about, and it does, as I mentioned, we can view the job or view the data sets, edit, manage file systems, jobs, and more. And file management, once again, what we saw on the demo side of it, even though we didn't see that live, but as I mentioned, we could do all that data set management and file management on the Explorer. Here it does say that, for example, you have in COBOL source code files on the mainframe. It makes it easier for to maintain and update the application code compared to the legacy emulator. Yeah, so this is how a traditional one would look like, and your, for example, on this screen you see here data sets on the right side here and the Unix services on the left. So this is the interface you would prefer. Most of the new generation developers will prefer this type of interface. So to access the data sets, or for example, in this one, it's showing up some of the APIs, sample APIs that's available. So you could access that, and it's the information in the trial app is displayed here. And job management, yes, if you know about job management on the mainframe, you could submit a job. It does, depending on the type of job that you submit. If you want to submit a copy job, it would use one of the IBM written programs, and then the job is in the spool on the mainframe. But here, using this tool here, you don't need to know where in the how to go to the spool, or how do you view that. Here the advantage is on the right here on this screen, you would be able to see different within the job. You will be able to see the just message log, just JCL, everything listed down here. You could go to just click on each of them and then go to the respective JCL. For example, your job is abandoned because of a JCL error. You could go to click on the JCL and then maybe just message and see where is it. Is it line number 1, 10, 20? So come back here and then go edit the JCL and then go back, submit right here, and should be able to give you an output. And
it looks like it hasn't updated in 6 minutes. You might need to refresh your connection. If you look at the date times, they don't match. It's been stuck at 10:49.
yeah, for some reason it's not it's not pulling
I'm
up.
saying you might have to refresh the whole screen.
The screen, yeah.
Yeah, because your connection is stale, it looks like.
Yeah, let me try that. Yeah. I'm not even.
I mean the whole, like, the refresh your web app.
The WebEx? Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Because they haven't gotten an update in 7 minutes.
Click on the refresh button on top.
Yeah, maybe let me refresh, yeah. So while this is loading, I can go back to the presentation and come back here. And the Zowe Explorer here, for example, your ID is IBM user. You could prefix with IBM star, and then it will display all the jobs that you have submitted with this ID, and then it would list, for example, this is the first one. It's submitted for one of the reasons here, and then you click on this. On the right hand side, you get a you get a view of the job output here, and for example, you can also the status of the job, active or abandoned, or you can all depending on the status what you're looking for, you can customize this the view as well. So let me take a look at the, yeah, it's still not loading. Okay, so and the MVS Explorer, so which is these are the components of the desktop. So for some reason I'm not able to show you on the desktop interface as well here. So we have a desktop interface also to show on the demo. So the desktop interface, it's as I mentioned, it's a UI based, and you don't need any plugins to be installed on the system, user system. So you could, all you need to do is install the Zowe on your server side, which is on the mainframe, and which is available on zowe.org. And then you can install you can either do the SMP install or a Unix services packs type of install. You can install that product. SMP, a typical system programmer would prefer an SMP install, and some would prefer a packs install. So once you have installed all that and then configure and then bring up started task, so you have all that available there, and then you also have the URL available, and then the port it connects to all that. And then once you have those three started tasks up and running, then you can go to any browser. You can go, as long as you are allowed to, as the company does not restrict you to use that outside your own device, company device. You could use it on any device, depending on the enterprise level, how they want to restrict each of the connection to their systems there. So within the desktop, so these are some of the interfaces. The one is the MVS Explorer. Using this, so we can list a data set starting with IBM.user, IBM user.star, and it will list all the data sets available with this qualifier here, and there are other components as well. One is you also have traditional 3270 on the UI as well. So, for example, you're making only the desktop available for at the enterprise level. You don't no more have any of these licensed 30 or the emulators on the enterprise level, and you would enforce this to be used by everybody, be it system programmer or anybody, and the system programmer would not prefer a modern interface like this. They can still go and use the traditional 30 to 70 right here on the desktop. It's called desktop component, but yeah, it's a browser-based desktop component, and so they can go and do their activity there, right there. And you can have multiple, just like a browser, you can have multiple windows. You can have MVS Explorer on one screen, and another screen you can have the traditional, or you can have another screen for just Explorer, and then you can have the VT as well, where you can interact with the Unix services. So all these components, you can either have one component, or for example, you can have just the desktop or CLI or the Explorer. So it's all depending on the preference of the at the enterprise level. And yeah, so using the using the Zowe Explorer and the components, we can debug the applications. The application developers, they would love doing with this, because if they are from a different the IDE type of environment, so they could all do all the debugging right here, instead of going to each of the data sets within the mainframe and then going to each of the codes there. Instead, they could do coding and editing and debugging, all that right here. And yeah, there are some extensions available for one of the Visual Studio plugins. We did speak about this. That has to be installed on your on the user system, and yeah. So I think we did. Yeah, we did speak about this, and command line interface. So is it coming back again? Yeah. Oh, okay, so this is part of the, yeah, because I'm not able to show the demo, so this is part of the, user, the desktop interface. So you can also have this, the Visual Studio Code plugin made available on the desktop, and the command line interface also. This can be made available on your user desktop. And yeah, this is how typical desktop applications that are available. And yeah, these as I mentioned, the 30 to 70 and the Unix Explorer, which could be used for the Unix and the VT terminal. We have MVS for the data sets, and JES for outputs, and IPv2 if we have to work with, for example, we have a mainframe network engineer. They might be interested in working on the IP Explorer instead. And the API catalog. So this could be this is mostly for the developers who or the application guys who are mostly interested in creating their own APIs. They can use this option here, and then there are some sample APIs available on the that could be used and built on top of that. So there are pretty good features out here. And yeah, this is how an editor looks, the Unix services and data sets. You can go to either of the tabs, and then it's better than Explorer, right? Because Explorer, you had to go up and down here. There are different tabs. You can just click on this tab, and it takes you to the Unix services, and then click on this side of this, and then it takes you to the data sets. And yeah, so as we spoke about the APIs, yeah, so the APIs, as I mentioned, this would be more interested for all the application side of the mainframe users, or the younger generation who would like to use mainframe on the background and then build their APIs on the top. And on the background, it does, as I mentioned, we can install Zowe SMF. Is most of the shops have Zowe SMF installed. It's an IBM software, and the CLI and the Explorer connects to that. And but if you have to install, if you have to connect to the desktop, you have to install the software from the zowe.org, and then some of these services are made available for an end user or a component or a Zowe Explorer or Zowe interface to be connected to. And yeah, so it does talk about the same API and the Zowe SMF server in the background. It is the Zowe SMF server. It uses the Zowe SMF server REST API services. And this is a sample, as I mentioned, there is a sample available on the trial where you can create your own sample API, and then, for example, the API is only giving, right now the source code is only allowing you to display only the email and address. You could go ahead and edit that source code and then make the names available with the output. So once you have updated that source code to have the names available, then this API would be visible right on the desktop or the Zowe desktop. It will be listed just like in the start menu like this. You can have that up and running, and at an enterprise level, you can, for example, this does you want to make this API available only for a department like it could be Mediclaims or any other department. If it's insurance client, mainframe client, and if it's Mediclaims, and then if it's a claims team and you want this API to be available only for those teams, you could configure the desktop, and then this API, the claims API, would be listed under the desktop interface, and then they should be able to access that. So pretty good features available with the Zowe installation, and the DevOps. Using Jenkins or the automating. So integrating mainframe into enterprise, the CI/CD pipeline.
So this is one of the main thing, right? I mean, DevOps becomes much easier. That is also the biggest challenge in the current mainframe world. For example, if you have Jenkins or Urban Code or anything from the deployment perspective, like if you're building a pipeline, you can invoke easily through Zowe with your CLI or Explorer, right? So that you can build the complete pipeline of CI, CD, and if you have a test, the complete CI, CD, CT gets completed. It's much easier in Zowe to do the DevOps integrations, right? If you already have a non-distributed platform, may have like Jenkins, and if they want to bring that in pipeline to the mainframe world, it's easier in Zowe, where you can invoke through CLI or Explorer and build the pipeline, right? So DevOps becomes much easier, right? And as you said, like API catalog, as we started with API, right? I mean, Zowe makes your life easier to build APIs, right? I mean, if you have Kix transactions, Google, or whatever it is, and if
so what I'm not seeing, or what I'm trying to understand from a Zowe Explorer standpoint, are we indicating here that the code and the build, what we would typically see IPZ and DBB, for instance, is that being covered here, or under the covers, we still need those components?
Under the cover, you still need those components. This bridges the gap of interacting all together. It becomes much easier to interact, and it will not do what UCD will do. It will not do what IDC will do. I mean, it brings everything, and CI/CD becomes much easier when it comes to Zowe. It can bridge the gap of all. For example, if you have Jenkins or UCD or DBB, whatever it is, you can invoke CLI and the programs and connect to those UCD and Jenkins pipelines.
That's a good point, because I want to make sure that it's clear that in order to do DevOps
Absolutely.
and CI/CD, It's not you need Jenkins and Zowe and you're done.
No.
I think there are.
This is an IDE. This is an IDE, modern IDE, where you are. I mean, it makes your life easy in building all this stuff. I guess.
But even in terms of IDE, when you think about it, so we have obviously we have IDZ. That's one.
Yes.
Space, right? And then we have the younger generation coming in and having knowledge on VS Code. Right?
Absolutely.
Right. And we also with VS Code there is something called the Z Open Editor plugin. Which connects you to Z, and then Zowe
True.
obviously is required for the communication interface.
Absolutely.
and all of that, right?
Absolutely.
So even from what exactly is the IDE being used? Is it Zowe Explorer is the IDE, or is it VS Code that's the IDE that's working closely with VS
Zowe Explorer is like Visual Studio based, right? I mean, like it is IDE Visual Studio based. It is an IDE. We can compare this with IDZ a little bit, but this is more like a Visual Studio base, where you can do pretty much everything, like edit the code, compile the code, I mean like delete the code, deploy it, and create APIs. Everything can be done through this IDE. That answers your question, right? Does it answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. So once again, yeah, we did discuss about this Jenkins pipeline, and
This is how we conclude. Maybe I can talk about it. It's a modern web-based interface because we call it as a browser-based desktop. It's like you can access through browser, and it's a very modern base. And it streamlines mainframe operations. It makes your mainframe operations much easier. You can do a lot of automation because the IDE is easy, to do automation. So streamlines the overall mainframe operations. Obviously enhance productivity, right? I mean, it's me navigating across 20 different screens and doing one thing on mainframe. Here with one IDE, I have everything, right? I mean, like I can quickly navigate. I know like people coming 20 to 30 years of experience still may not like this. I mean, because they've been used to the traditional ISPF way. But I mean, this is mainly to bring in younger generations who don't want to do the mainframe ISPF way. For them, it's much easier, right? It improves the productivity, and from the UI perspective, it's easier. This is closer to Eclipse way of developing Java or something like that, right? So increased adoption of DevOps is what in today's world everybody are like moving towards DevOps. Hey, like I have CI/CD, I have CD and CD. How to bring in CI? How to integrate? So this IDE can help in making the DevOps integration much easier, right? So that is very, very important when it comes to DevOps. Continuous integration and deployment is a key. Every organization has some sort of a tool from the deployment and integration perspective, like Jenkins and Jira's and Urban Code, or like all these tools are available today. But how to fit into the mainframe world is a key, where Zowe can help, and IDZ and other tools can also help in making integration much easier, right? Yeah, I think that's pretty much from the Zowe perspective. As a part of this session, we as a Royal Sabre, we are helping from the complementary assessment. What is complementary assessment? When you say complementary, no commitment from the dollar amount or anything like that, right? I mean, so if you say we are new to Zowe, we can come in, we can understand what are your challenges today, and how we can help you from the Zowe perspective by installing, configuring, and setting up Zowe. For example, if you are specific to API, if you need help, we can help you like in setting up API, and we can do an assessment, understand what are your challenges you have from the modernization perspective, and we can put together a plan for you in the form of a report, which we are doing it as a complementary assessment to start, right? A jumpstart, what is jumpstart? 4 to 6 weeks. Some customers, they buy Zowe, or not buy, they have Zowe, and they don't know what to do. I mean, they may know a little bit, but in a right way, how to select a use case, for example, API, right? I mean, we can take few APIs and we can help them in terms of how to use Zowe in the right way, so that we jumpstart, so that from there they can do themselves. So we do these two things. So if you are interested, we can talk more. And also, like, we are hosting dinner tonight, and we have invitation. It's Mayops, I believe. We have the invitation cards. So it's 6:30 tonight. We can talk more on Zowe and overall modernization, how we help from the modernization perspective. So Brijesh is here. He has those invitations. If you guys are interested, for the dinner tonight, we can discuss more and can have fun with the food and drinks. So we will be tired. So if you are interested, please take those invitations. The right code and bring those transactions, create a wrapper, and build an API. It's like just follow the steps, right? You're not going through navigating across multiple screens. Think about as a younger kid coming and building an API on mainframes without knowing what it is. So it's easy. I mean, you can see the transactions through Zowe, and you can follow the steps of how to build the API. Now it becomes easy to connect with the outside world, which is modernization. Right? Go ahead.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So DevOps and CI/CD is near and dear to me, as you know, right? So when we talk about a CI/CD pipeline, there is code, there is build, right? There is testing, there is provision, there is deployment.
True.
Right? And when we're talking about